Sage of Humanity, author by Momo. Chapter 1, Mining Slave. In the dim and damp mining tunnel, Lu Ye carried a mining basket on his back and a pickaxe in his hand, step by step, moving forward. The young man wore a somewhat sad expression, his eyes focused on the space in front of him, as if staring at something. To outsiders, there appeared to be nothing in front of Lu Ye, but in the young man's vision he could see a semi-transparent shadow. It resembled the shadow of a tree, hazy and indistinct, with lush branches and leaves splitting from 1/3 up the trunk to support a semicircular canopy. Having been in this world called the 9 Provinces for over a year, Lu Ye still hadn't figured out what exactly this thing was. He only knew that when his concentration was sufficient, the chance of this shadow tree appearing in his sight increased, and others were completely unaware of it. Truly a miserable life, the young man sighed. A year ago, he abruptly awoke in this unfamiliar world, and before he even had a chance to get accustomed to his surroundings, the power he found himself amidst was seized by a group of bandits. Many were killed, and he, along with some other young men and women, became the captives of those bandits, who then sent him into this mine to become a lowly mining slave. Only later did he find out from the scattered conversations of others that the power he had been part of belonged to the Haitian Alliance, a sect named the Zhuantian sect. The name of this sect sounded cool and domineering, but in reality it was just an insignificant minor sect. It was Evil Moon Valley under the 10,000 Demons Ridge that had taken over the Zhuantian sect. The Haitian Alliance and the 10,000 Demons Ridge were 2 major camp organizations in this world, both formed by countless large and small powers united together, constantly undermining and battling each other, with the aim of completely eliminating the other side, a conflict that had reportedly lasted for hundreds of years. To Lu Ye, such strife was simply a battle between the forces of law and evil, and he had just inadvertently been swept up into this great tide of confrontation. Over the years, the 9 Provinces continent had been beset with ongoing wars, with small powers like the Zhuantian sect being uprooted annually, but soon more powers would spring up like bamboo shoots after a rain, claiming various territories and complicating the situation even more. If I must be a mining slave, then so be it, Lu Ye consoled himself. At least he was still alive compared to those who had been killed. His survival had nothing to do with any special skills of his own. Rather, Evil Moon Valley needed some menials to do errands, and people like Lu Ye without any cultivation and still young were undoubtedly the best choice. Actually, among the mining slaves in this mine were not only people from the Zhuantian sect, but also disciples from other small families and minor sects. The power of Evil Moon Valley was not weak. Over the years, it had conquered much territory, and naturally, the original powers of those territories were destroyed. Some of the usable manpower was sent by Evil Moon Valley to various places for enslavement. These people invariably shared one characteristic. They had not yet opened their orifices and had no cultivation in their bodies, making them easy to control. In the 9 Provinces continent, there was a saying, "Without opening its orifice, a demon can't shape change. Without opening its orifice, a human can't cultivate. If one wishes to cultivate, they must first open their spiritual orifice, and only with an open spiritual orifice does one have the eligibility for cultivation." Opening the spiritual orifice is not an easy task. Among ordinary people, after systematic training, not more than 1 in 100 can open their spiritual orifice. If they come from a cultivating family or a sect with elders guiding them, the proportion might be higher. Lu Ye had failed to open his spiritual orifice, so he could only make a living by mining in the dim tunnels. However, mining slaves were not without a way out. If one could succeed in opening their orifice and report this to the manager, there was a chance to take a test. Upon passing the test, they could become disciples of Evil Moon Valley. Yet among the mining slaves, very few were able to open their orifices. In this dim environment, laboring day in and day out, hardly even getting enough to eat, how could one even think of opening their orifice? Thus, practically 99% of the mining slaves had resigned themselves to a hard life, working tirelessly each day just for a full meal. Lu Ye felt no sense of belonging to the Zhuantian sect after all. As soon as he came to this world, the sect was destroyed, and he didn't recognize any of the people inside it. He didn't wish to become a disciple of something like Evil Moon Valley either. It wasn't a legitimate force. The name alone gave off a sense of evil. It was bound to fall sooner or later. But he couldn't stay in here as a mining slave forever. What a disgrace that would be. After all, he was an elite of the new era. If a person lived without dreams, how are they any different from a salted fish? So for the past year, he had been diligently attempting to open his orifice. Initially, he thought the shadow tree, which only he could see, might provide some miraculous help. But up to now, the shadow tree remained just a shadow. It didn't offer any help, and sometimes it even affected his vision. Lu Ye began to seriously suspect that there might be a problem with his eyes. Turning a corner, a faint light appeared far ahead, one of the exits of the mining tunnel. Today's yield was good. Submitting the ore in the mining basket should earn him 3 contribution points. Coupling that with the previous day's accumulation, he had roughly 12 points. Using 2 to exchange for 2 steamed buns, the remaining 10 points could just afford a blood chi pill. TQT. The blood chi pill was a very low-level medicinal pill, not intended to assist with orifice opening, but to open one's orifice, one must have plentiful blood chi. Although low-level, the blood chi pill was precisely suitable for someone like Lu Ye who hadn't opened his orifice. The reason Evil Moon Valley was willing to offer blood chi pills wasn't out of kindness, but because they understood the human heart well. Even the cheapest and most basic pills could make those harboring hopes work even harder in mining. Esti, like Lu Ye, who worked diligently every day. About 30 feet from the mining tunnel exit, Lu Ye's gaze inadvertently swept over a corner to the left front, where a large boulder lay across. Chapter 2, Chapter 1, Mining Slave _2. He did not stop his pace, continuing forward until he was about 30 feet away, before setting down the mining basket that he was carrying on his back, tightening his grip on the pickaxe in his hand, and taking out a moderately sized stone from the basket, weighing it slightly. The next moment, he ran towards the boulder, approaching it. He sidestepped while sliding, stepping on the mine tunnel's rocky wall, and using the rebounding force to dive towards the back of the boulder like a nimble cheetah. 2 figures were half squatting behind the boulder, using it to hide their shapes, utterly unaware that someone would discover their tracks. Hearing the noise and seeing that it was too late for Lu Ye to stand up, under the horrified gaze of the 2, Lu Ye threw the stone in his hand, hitting one of them right on the bridge of the nose, causing him to cry out in pain instantly and fall backward to the ground, blood flowing freely from his face. The pickaxe in Lu Ye's other hand struck again, but missed the second man, who responded well and dodged to the side. However, Lu Ye had already rushed in front of him and kicked out, hitting the man squarely in the abdomen, causing him to double over in pain, fly out, kneel on the ground, and vomit a mouthful of acidic fluid. Lu Ye stepped forward, grabbing the man's hair with one hand, and upon seeing his face, he sneered, "So it's you 2 brothers. I should have guessed." He knew these 2. They were disciples of the Lu family. After the Lu family's territory was seized by Evil Moon Valley, some of the young disciples were sent here to become mining slaves. Strictly speaking, Lu Ye's fate was connected with these 2 brothers of the Liu family. "Didn't I tell you? Don't let me see you again or else I'll slaughter you," said Lu Ye. As he spoke, he casually picked up a stone from the ground and smashed it down fiercely. The blow was heavy, and the second brother of the Lu family grunted just once before being knocked out cold. Lu Ye then walked towards the first brother, Leader Liu, whom he had injured earlier. Leader Liu's forehead was smashed open, his eyes blurred with blood, and upon vaguely seeing Lu Ye approaching, he scrambled away in terror. "Spare my life! I didn't know it was you who was coming. We thought it was someone else. Please, spare my life." The Liu brothers had sinisterly ambushed at the entrance of the mine tunnel, obviously with ill intentions. Before being captured, both brothers had lived pampered lives and even reduced to mining slaves. They were unwilling to toil. Yet as mining slaves were held in low esteem, the people of Evil Moon Valley did not regard them as human beings, and without exchanging mined stones for contribution points, they couldn't obtain food. Therefore, the two brothers often lay in wait at an exit of the mine tunnel to rob other mining slaves who were on their own. Many had suffered at their hands, losing not only the stones they had mined through hard work each day, but also being beaten too within an inch of their lives. Last time they had attempted to rob Lu Ye, only to find they were no match for him and were taught a lesson. Unexpectedly, it had only been a few days, and they encountered each other again. The same grain feeds all sorts of people. Among the mining slaves were those lazy ones like the Liu brothers, and there were also dreamers like Lu Ye. Over the past year, the contributions Lu Ye exchanged for the mined stones, aside from securing his daily sustenance, were all used to get blood chi pills. All in all, he had consumed no less than 30 blood chi pills. That had built Lu Ye's physique to be stronger than most mining slaves. Although his build was not considered burly, the power concealed within his body had already surpassed that of ordinary people. Dealing with two lazy mining slaves was naturally not a problem. Leader Liu continued to beg for mercy, but Lu Ye acted as if he hadn't heard, grabbed his hair with one hand, lifted another stone with his other hand, and smashed it down fiercely. Over a year of living as a mining slave, Lu Ye had witnessed too many tragedies and had already understood a principle. In this dog-eat-dog world, any kindness and sympathy were pointless. The mining slaves were not all harmonious either. Coming from different forces, it was inevitable that they couldn't unite, and over a quality piece of stone, it was common for them to fight until bloody. Every day people die in the mine tunnels. Every few steps taken, one could see a pile of scattered bones on the ground. There are no small number of mining slaves who starved to death after being robbed. Leader Liu fell at the sound. Lu Ye picked up his mining pick, shouldered his mining basket once more, and strode towards the exit. He had not killed the Liu brothers, not because he was soft-hearted, but because an injured mining slave generally wouldn't live long in this place. He had barely taken a few steps when someone suddenly rushed into the exit in a fluster. "Get out of the way!" the man barked, swinging a palm towards Lu Ye. In that instant, Lu Ye felt a chill over his entire body, simply because he saw a faint blue light swirling in the man's palm. It was the glow of spirit force. In other words, the person who struck him was a cultivator. Only those who have opened their spiritual orifice are qualified for cultivation and to be called a cultivator. A cultivator's spirit force is an extremely miraculous power. Lu Ye had once seen a cultivator from Evil Moon Valley take action. Although it wasn't terribly mighty, with a casual palm strike, the cultivator crushed a piece of ore. It was after witnessing that miraculous scene that Lu Ye resolved to open his own spiritual orifice and become a cultivator. He had also secretly assessed that even the weakest cultivator of Evil Moon Valley could easily beat 10 of him. So when he realized that the person striking him was a cultivator, Lu Ye knew he was in serious trouble. At this life-and-death moment, he forcefully halted his steps and leaped backwards sharply. A numbness in his chest and the sound of breaking bones followed. Lu Ye was sent flying by the blow, crashing to the ground. The intense pain brought clarity to his mind, and once he realized he was still alive, he immediately got up. The attacking cultivator expressed surprise. Although he hadn't used full strength in his palm strike, only a casual blow, it shouldn't have been something a mining slave could withstand. By the dim light, he saw the mining slave's face clearly and blurted out, "Lu Ye." Lu Ye was already in the stance to turn and flee at the sound, and he was equally taken aback. Manager Yang. This cultivator surnamed Yang was a minor manager on the mines, and Lu Ye often dealt with him because he exchanged for blood chi pills through him. Thus, they were somewhat familiar with each other. Manager Yang thought highly of Lu Ye. After all, a mining slave capable of enduring such hardship was rare to see. However, as much as he thought highly of him, there wasn't any special favor. Until the day of orifice opening, there was an insurmountable gulf between Lu Ye, an ordinary person, and the cultivators. Having recognized Lu Ye, Manager Yang felt relieved that his palm strike hadn't killed him. Lu Ye had exchanged for quite a few blood chi pills from him over the year, and his physical constitution was naturally stronger than that of an average mining slave. Plus, since he had struck casually without any intent to kill, it wasn't surprising that the other party had survived. Facing Manager Yang, Lu Ye's heart was pounding. Cultivators of Evil Moon Valley generally wouldn't care about the life and death of mining slaves. They knew that mining slaves often fought and brawled in the veins, and unless they encountered it themselves, they hardly took notice. Lu Ye had just left the Liu brothers battered and unconscious on the ground, and then Manager Yang had struck him with a palm. In Lu Ye's view, this was clearly Manager Yang teaching him a lesson. But soon he thought otherwise, because Manager Yang had rushed in looking flustered, not like he was taking up for the Liu brothers at all. As he was lost in wild thoughts, Manager Yang already revealed an excited expression, as if encountering Lu Ye here was a fortunate event. He closed the distance, grabbed Lu Ye's shoulder with a hand. "Come with me!" Chapter 3. Chapter 2. Scheming. Lu Ye suddenly felt a strong force grabbing him, his body involuntarily following along. Suppressing the pain in his chest, he asked, "Manager Yang, where are we going?" "Shut up!" Manager Yang snapped viciously. After a few steps, he glanced at the mining basket behind Lu Ye. "Drop it." Lu Ye dared not disobey, untying the mining basket and dropping it to the ground. However, he did not drop his mining pick. Manager Yang only glanced at it but said nothing more. The light behind grew dimmer as they went deeper in. The depths of the mine were very dark, with the occasional torch every few dozen feet providing a bit of light. The passages within the entire vein crisscrossed, with extremely complex terrain, and not every mining tunnel was illuminated by torches. Most of the mine passages were enveloped in darkness all year round, and no one knew where these tunnels led. Therefore, when mining here, if one did not follow the traces of the torches, it was very easy to lose direction. For the mortal mining slaves who lost their way in such a place, the outcome was predictable. In the mouths of the mining slaves, the lighted mine tunnels were called lit tunnels, while those enveloped in darkness all year round were known as dark tunnels. There were often instances of torches burning out, turning lit tunnels into dark tunnels, and mining slaves losing their bearings, starving to death. As he followed Manager Yang, Lu Ye noticed something strange that Manager Yang kept looking back nervously, as if there was some danger behind them. Manager Yang's behavior made him anxious as well. "Lu Ye, have you discovered any secret paths?" Manager Yang suddenly asked. "Yes," Lu Ye nodded. Denying it in front of Manager Yang was pointless. In fact, not only did Lu Ye know several dark tunnels, the few stronger mining slaves in the mine each had a few paths as well. Although the lit tunnels were safer, there were not many places left to mine in them. In contrast, the dangerous dark tunnels often contained valuable finds. It was by relying on these dark tunnels rich in resources that Lu Ye was able to have a full harvest every day. Otherwise, where would he find the extra contribution to exchange for blood chi pills? That was also why Manager Yang took him along after recognizing him. "Manager Yang wants to go to those dark tunnels?" Lu Ye asked, his suspicion growing as Manager Yang suddenly inquired about the dark tunnels. Manager Yang said, "Take me there. Find the most secluded dark tunnel." "All right." Lu Ye nodded, walking a few steps before suddenly groaning, clutching his chest. The bones in his chest were dislocated from the beating, and following Manager Yang on this fast-paced journey gave him no chance to rest properly. Now, as the injury was aggravated, pain made him stop in his tracks, his forehead breaking out in a cold sweat. Manager Yang looked at him disapprovingly and hesitated for a moment before reaching into a pouch at his waist and pulling out a round and soybean-sized pill, handing it to Lu Ye. "Eat it." Lu Ye took it, unable to recognize what kind of pill it was. He had only encountered blood qi pills throughout the year. This pill was clearly different from the blood qi pill. But at this moment, with Manager Yang needing him, it was unlikely that he would harm him. Chances were the pill was for healing purposes. He popped the pill into his mouth, chewed a few times, and immediately regretted it deeply as the medicine was incredibly bitter. "Why chew it? Just swallow it down. It's a healing pill," Manager Yang said irritably. So it was indeed a healing pill. With a face as bitter as a gourd, Lu Ye still had to express gratitude. "Thank you, Manager Yang." "If you really want to thank me, then get moving," Manager Yang pushed him. With no choice but to muster his spirits, Lu Ye led the way. Though the pill was bitterly unpleasant, its effect was astonishingly good. Within moments after taking it, and the pain in his chest lessened, turning into a ticklish sensation. This made him inwardly remark that indeed good medicine tastes bitter. Under Lu Ye's lead, the two of them continued to navigate the complex network of mining tunnels. Occasionally, they encountered mining slaves on their way back, whom Manager Yang killed with a wave of his hand. Lu Ye's eyelids twitched, and his suspicions grew clearer. About a shikan. Later, they stopped in front of a dark tunnel, with Lu Ye now holding a torch he had taken from nearby. He said, "Manager Yang, this is the most hidden dark tunnel. After you enter, take a left at the first junction and at the second junction." Before he could finish speaking, Manager Yang kicked him inside. "Lead the way ahead." Lu Ye's heart sank to the bottom. He didn't want to lead the way. Judging by Manager Yang's actions on the way here, if he really led him to the place, he probably wouldn't end well. But his last attempt had already failed. Clearly, Manager Yang did not plan to venture into the dark tunnel alone. Having Lu Ye, who knew the terrain, lead the way was far better than him fumbling around by himself. Helpless, Lu Ye could only continue forward. After many twists and turns, even the cultivator Manager Yang began to forget the way back. More than 2 hours later, the mining tunnel ahead was blocked, with no way forward. Lu Ye planted the torch into a concealed stake on the rock wall. Manager Yang took a deep breath, sitting down to catch his breath, and glanced at Lu Ye, unable to suppress a chuckle. "You're quite capable finding such a place." Lu Ye smiled. "Just lucky." Manager Yang nodded and said no more. Lu Ye said, "Manager Yang, then I'll head back first." Manager Yang slightly lifted his eyelids, saying indifferently, "Lu Ye, you are a smart person, and smart people should do smart things."